Three features of commercial organization known to ravage its health are poor employee performance, high employee turnover, and prevalent employee fraud and malfeasance. The cost of each can be staggering. Our claim is that organizations possessing an unethical work culture in which employees participate in or simply observe regular wrongdoing will be best by the three outcomes. We are not assigning these outcomes to localized or infrequent ethical infractions, but rather to dominant organizational culture that permits or promotes dishonest business practices. Inferior work performance is probably the biggest saboteur of profitability. Let's begin with it. Poor employee performance. कोर्न त दुईजना थियो एउटा त टाढा हुन्छ अरे अब अर्कोलाई सोध्छु भने Poor places of work can be stressful. We all know it. What we might not appreciate though. Huh? यो उयो गर न Oh my god, यो फुल त्यहाँ कसले झुन्डाउनु जान्छ होला है एउटा गर्दन सर्दन छ कस्तो घुर्नुहुन्छ भाइ हजुर त कस्तो रिस उठ्छ राति निन्द्रामा पनि मलाई रिस उठ्छ Our claim is that organization possessing an unethical work culture in which employees participate in or simply observe regular wrongdoing will be beset beset by the three outcomes. We are not assigning these outcomes to localized or infrequent ethical infractions, but rather to a dominant organizational culture that permits or promotes dishonest business party and practices. Inferior work performance is probably the biggest saboteur of profitability. Let's begin with it. Poor employee performance. Places of work can be stressful. We all know it. What we might not appreciate, though, is how costly that stress can be. One recent analysis found the toll to be heavy on both personal and economic dimensions, as various kinds of occupational stress, when combined, led annually to about 120,000 deaths and 200 billion in additional healthcare expenses in the United States alone, where employers bear much of the financial burden. However, there is yet another type of cost carrying workplace stress that went unexamined in this analysis, but is related directly to the issue of organizational misconduct. Hmm. हो त्यहाँ हो 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 आइसाको बहिनी चाहिँ पास छ अरे ब्याचलर चाहिने हो त्यो थाहा छैन मलाई We can call it moral stress, and it comes from a conflict between an employee's ethical values and the perceived ethical values of the organization. In the case of employee performance, this kind of stress can be even more harmful than other stressors known to be highly damaging. भयो भयो यो टाउको चाहिँ अलि राम्रोसँग गरिदेऊ न
कति राम्रो गरिदिने र
गरिदेऊ गरिदेऊ
अहिले मलाई गर्नुहुन्छ र
अबे
तान्दा पनि यसो गरे जस्तो गरेर छोडिदिनुहुन्छ
त्यही त
अँ
राम्रोसँग औँलाले गर कि नङले मात्रै होइन नङले त झारेको जस्तो भयो
टाइमिङ कति हो अहिले
हँ
टाइमिङ
टाइमिङ 8 to 5 एक घन्टा त्यसमा ब्रेक पाइन्छ
Saturday, Sunday बिदा नि त
Yes, for example, a study of customer service agents in a financial service call center compared moral stress with other forms of stress there, including problems with difficult customers, lack of support from job descriptions, only moral stress predicted both of two performance degrading outcomes: employee fatigue, low emotional spirit, and physical energy, and job burnout. टाउको मात्रै गरेर यहाँ तिमीले गरिसक्यौ त होइन
भयो
loss of enthusiasm for the interest in one's work. These two outcomes weren't chosen for study offhandedly by the researchers. Each is a serious managerial problem by itself. Combined, they are a managerial nightmare, robbing workers of the vigor, desire, and capacity to do their jobs well. Might it be that in creating an unethical
ब्याचलर रनिङ गरे
running अरे कतिमा अहिले third fourth work environment, an organization unknowingly creates that nightmare for itself. अनि कम्प्युटर नलेजहरू छ कि छैन अरे त might an unethical work environment produce lower performance in workers who didn't behave unethically themselves but merely observed such behavior among their fellow workers? To find out, we arranged an experimental situation that allowed us to test the effects of uh, dishonest workplace activity not only on task performance but on our other specified organizational tumors. We invited university students to sit at a computer networked to those of team members at various other universities. ओके भोलि म कुरा गर्छु अनि फोटो सोटो छ भने पठाइदिइराख्नु भन
पहिला उसले कन्फर्म गर्छ अरे
ए their team would compete. They were told on problem solving tasks against other teams from around the country. If their team did well on the first task, it would be given a competitive advantage over the other teams and the next group task. Finally, they were told that because of some technology issues with only their computer, they wouldn't be able to send information to their teammates, although they would be able to see their teammates' online interactions with one another.
कस्तो फोटो पठाउनु भनेर
गर्ने भयो भने मात्रै फोटो पनि त रिसेप्सनमा जहिले नि राम्री मान्छे मात्रै हुन्छ भने थाहा छैन. After the team members performed the first problem solving task, they learned from their team leader that
पहिला
the
पनि
team
रिसेप्सनमै
had
बसेको
gotten
भनेपछि त अनि
only 67%
तर
of the
राम्रो छ यसको
answers
बहिनीहरू त
correct. They also learned that nonetheless उसले पास गरिसक्यो अरे छैन होला
के अरे
intended to report
तर मेबी यसको बहिनीहरू उताको होला कि सुदूरपश्चिमको यसको मामाहरूको बहिनीहरू त मम्मी सुदूरपश्चिमको हो नि त
group ए हो र groups perceived perhaps because
उता कोलपुरतिरको तर बसाइ चाहिँ यतै काठमाडौँको होला त
confided there was no way that cheating could be discovered by the researcher.
बोल्न त च्याम्पियन छ भनेर
None of
सोध्न
the
कतिको
other
अगाडि
team
हुन्छ।
members stated any objection. Of course, the sequence of events was something we manufactured for our study. Participants, the information they got from their team leader and team members was programmed by us to appear on their computer screens as we would designed it. The same was true for a second set, our participants who received received identical information with one crucial difference. They saw their team leader
मलाई
report.
मैले हातै गले।
Bye bye. Thank you. धन्यवाद धन्यवाद 3 million people in my house भनेको जिरो भइदिएर एकैचोटि participants can be the sequence of events was something we manufactured for our studies. Participants, the information they got from their team leader and team members was programmed by us to appear on their computer screen as we designed it. The same was true for a second set of our participants who received identical information with one crucial difference. They saw their team leader report intending to submit the group's 67% score honestly to the researcher. And here again, they witnessed none of the other team members stating any objection. At this point, then half of our participants had been made to be part of a work unit that approved of and engaged in deceit to obtain a competitive advantage, whereas the other half of our participants had not. Thus, we were poised to learn how the two experiences affected the costly consequences we had predicted. First came on examination of subsequent work relevant performance. All participants were informed that the next task would be an individual one, in which each would read about a business situation and then answer critical reasoning questions associated with it. We took the business situation and its related questions from a well validated test of business intelligence to ensure that performance on it would involve the kinds of judgments that affect business success. The ensuing data showed dramatic differences. Those participants whose work team had previously been deceptive scored 20% lower on the test than our other participants. Another finding gave us an indication of why the first group performed so poorly. After working on the business problem for a while, the members just stopped significantly sooner than the other participants, suggesting they didn't have the same energy or motivation to continue. Although these results were encouraging for at least one aspect of our thinking, we could imagine hearing the neigh of a frustrating collection of naysayers declaring themselves unconvinced because evidence on workplace issues coming from a laboratory experiment on university students who encountered an artificially constructed unethical environment is inadequate. In truth, the most frustrating feature to us of these imagined critics was that they had a point. We recognized that To confirm that our data patterns applied to a real life employment situations, we needed to find out from a sample of workers how ethics relevant workplace factors operated on them. We set out to do so by conducting a national survey of adults who had been at their current or most recent job for an average of 3 years. The survey contained a lot of questions about these individuals and the places they worked. But for our current focus, three types of items carried special weight. Those asking them to rate the ethical climate of the organization as set by its managers and leaders, the amount of stress they felt there, and the quality of their work performance. When we analyzed their responses, we found results that fit with and even exceeded the findings of our university laboratory experiment, according to their reports. First, the more unethical the climate, the poorer the workers' job performance. Second, the poorer unethical the climate, the poorer the workers' job performance. Second, the more unethical the climate, the more stress they felt at work. And third, the particular stress caused their poor performance. With this evidence in hand, when making an economically centered pitch to business leaders against unethical activities, we thought we had the making of strike one. Employee turnover. For business leaders, there's one good feature of employee turnover cost. They can be assessed fairly precisely, but that's where the good news ends depending on the type of type of employee lost in the process. Charges to the bottom line range from large to eye-wateringly large estimates of direct expenses associated with turnover. Severance pay, recruitment, hiring, and training of the replacement can extend from 50% of the employee's annual compensation package for lower level positions to over 200% of the total package for executive level positions. This cost spiral even higher when indirect hits are taken into account: loss of institutional memory, less and productivity disruptions, lowered morale among remaining team members. But to get a conservative estimate of voluntary turnover cost, let's assume that on average the combined direct and indirect expenses were equal to just year's total remuneration. Voluntary turnover rates in the United States are now above 15% per year, but for the average mid-sized firm of 1,000 employees, even if only 10% of workers who averaged $40,000 in total salary and benefits annually walked out, they would take with them $4 million every year in turnover cost. How is this economic toll related to unethical work practice? We thought it would be through the moral stress experienced by employees whose personal values conflicted with regular wrongdoing. One reason an honest person would want to leave a work unit would be if its staying meant having to be a party to presiding duplicity. To test the possibility, we constructed another experiment on university business students that was much like our first study. in that half of them were part of a team led by a leader who advanced its agenda through deception, and the other half were part of a team that did not act deceptively afterward. They were told that prior to beginning a second group task, they could elect either to stay with their team or to move to a different one. When we counted the votes, we found that 51% of those who had been in an ethical group decided to leave their team, but 80% of those in an unethical group chose to leave theirs. To gain confidence that these results applied beyond our laboratory setting, we turned to the data from our National Survey of Workers, which revealed clear turnover related patterns. Not only, not only were employees of unethically rated organizations more likely to feel stressed and more likely to want to quit, it was this stress that was pushing them to leave and to leave their employers with financially draining turnover cost as a consequence. Strike two, we said. Employee found and malfeasance. Malfeasance. Uh, Employee fraud and malfeasance. Notice that according to our thinking, the flight of personnel from the from an ethically compromised company isn't expected to include everyone. Rather, because the exodus is launched by the stress from conflicting moral values, it will be specific to employees with high ethical standards. Those comfortable with the use of trickery to achieve financial gains should be happy to stay, and therein lies the source. टिक्दैन के गर्नु त्यस्तो चाहिँ अब source of our third specified tumor of organizational dishonesty. झिलिक्क झिलिक्क मात्रै हो तिम्रो त्यो देखेरै मलाई अगाइसक्यो. Phrased in terms of a caution to any leader responsible for shaping the ethical climate of an organization. It is as follows: those who cheat for you will cheat against you. If you increase the first form of deceit, you will get the second, which will cost you dearly in the big bargain. Owing to the tendency for personal to exit organization, त्यही त भने त त्यो कति चाहिँ टिक्यो त नि where the ethical faith अनि त्यो सिलाइ लाएर ए हुन्छ त्यस्तो यहाँ हेर न माथि त्यो झिलिक As for a company with an enduring culture of misconduct will push away many honest employees, leaving an accumulating precipitate of individuals disposed toward wrongdoing and who, when given the opportunity, will do their wrong to the firm. By our argument, then, such an enterprise will draw under its coat a viper, a snake. Those who bite will be fiscally venomous, as the cost of employee fraud and malfeasance are figured in trillions of dollars worldwide. What's more, this law says stemming from embezzlement, theft of inventory or equipment expenses account, inflation, falsified purchasing reports, and under the table deals with vendors or business partners are rarely recouped. This argument seems a good one with its proclaimed logic, measure, fiscal implications, poison linked, metaphorical flourish, and all. But where's the evidence? To find it, we turned again to our experimental setting and one final procedure. Recall that in our second study, subjects became part of a work unit that either did or did not embrace dishonesty, and when we gave them the chance to stay with the unit or leave it for another many more choose to quit their team if it had acted unethically. At this point, we told everyone that because of unforeseen logistical difficulties, we weren't able to accommodate any team switching. Therefore, they would be working on the next task with their original teammates. Actually, the next task required them to work against those teammates to determine who could best solve an array of word problems quickly. Whoever did so within 1 minute would increase the probability of winning a $100 prize before
मैले यो पनि पठाएको तर हेर्नु भएन
participants participants Sodana provided their solutions. We arranged for them to accidentally see the answer key for the problems in an untraceable way. Through pretests, we had learned that on average, the typical student at the university could solve 3.1 of the problems in a minute. So, by comparing participants' reported number of problems solved to the 3.17 standard, we could see which type of participants were likely to cheat to elevate their own economic interest over those of their colleagues. The results were clear. Among the participants who had been part of an honest work unit and had elected to stay in it, cheating was non-existent to negligible, which suggests a high five should be given to the many leaders who have had the integrity and organizational wisdom to establish an ethical culture. Participants choosing to live there an honest or a dishonest work unit cheated somewhat, but not to a statistically significant degree. The big news, though, came from the actions of those who, when previously given the chance, had opted to remain in a dishonest environment. They cheated 77% more than the average of everyone else. That cheating, remember, didn't merely enhance their own financial prospects, but also undermined those of the people around them. It might be too harsh to label these actions venomous, but they did appear sufficiently toxic to justify a close look into our survey. Hello. Into our survey numbers to assess the related evidence from naturally occurring workplace experiences. We examine the relationships among items measuring employees' ratings of the ethicality of their workplace as set by its leaders, their desire to leave that workplace, and their admissions of malfeasance on the job, that is, economically harmful actions taken against their employers, such as altering expense reports, sabotaging equipment to avoid having to work, and using company resources for purposes. The key finding was that employees in unethical organizations who prefer to remain in them were abnormally likely to engage in such deceitful, financially costly workplace activity. Just as in our laboratory experiment, individuals happy to reside in unethical workplace nests were revealed to be happy to foul those nests. Near the start of this book, I admitted that its completion was several years late because a university administrator using a persuasive tactic got me to agree to teach an MBA course at his university while I was there on a leave of absence to write the book. The decision derailed those writing plans during my stay at his school. However, I also admitted to seeing certain positive outcomes of the decision, such as having a good story to tell about the power of persuasion and being able to include in the book recent research that wasn't available back then. There was another positive as well. I got the opportunity to ask students in the course who had all returned to school after several years in the working world to write an essay describing what they had experienced while being employed in an organization with either an ethical or unethical work climate. Most choose to report on what they would felt and witnessed in an unethical culture, perhaps because those memories were more intense. One student provided an edifying account of company he had worked for that started out healthy but had since suffered a 1 billion loss. The CEO abused the influence principles on a regular basis. He claimed scarcity when there was abundance. He used his authority to make others act against their better judgment and created examples of social proof that didn't exist. People believed him in the short run, but as the truth leaked out, the company's reputation deteriorated. Few companies were willing to do business with him now. Those that do will only do so on onerous terms. The culture of dishonesty trickled down throughout the organization. The marketing department was forced to exaggerate the truth. The PR department wrote mostly false press releases, and salespeople cursed customers. Job dissatisfactions and turnover were incredibly mm, टिकाउ चाहिँ कतिको टिकाउ छ हो राम्रो तर incredibly high. Please contact for a wholesale matter पे People were attracted to the company by high salaries, with the CEO saw as justification for treating employees poorly, but left as soon as they could find work elsewhere. Taking a cue from the executives, employees would steal from the company whenever they could, usually via travel and expense reports. Some would cut side deals with suppliers. When I when I visited a few months ago, nearly half the staff had left. The morale was lower than ever. Afghani अफगानी पफगानी
त मैले लगाएको यार पहिला स्कुल पढाउने बेला यही टाइपको ओरियो टाइपको
होला तिमीले लगाएको होला भोलि एउटा खाऊ पर्सि एउटा खाऊ निको पर्सि सन्डेसम्मै पुग्ने रहेछ त अर्को 6 महिनासम्म नखाऊ नि त अर्को उयोसम्म चक्लेट डेसम्म राखिराख न एउटा चाहिँ है ओके ओके कि नट ओके एकछिनै त्यहाँ फेरि उयो भएको छैन फेरि गीत बजाउला हो मैले ए हामीलाई भयो हवेला भैली रम देउसु रे